Today is Wednesday, August 27th, 2025. This is Quick Start from CBN News. I'm Dan Andros. Cracker Barrel has caved. We'll have that top story and more on today's podcast, where we bring you news from a Christian perspective. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating if you haven't done so already. We'd appreciate that. We'd also like to hear from you. Our email address is quickstartpodcast@cbn.org. You can email us because we'd love to hear from you. We're so glad you're with us, getting through the news of the day each and every weekday, bright and early. And with me today, CBN's Billy Hallowell and Trey Goins-Phillips. And Trey, as I just mentioned on the Focus, we're going to take a look at it. Cracker Barrel has done a 180.
Yeah, I think they felt the pressure not only of their stocks taking a nosedive, but the president weighing in on the issue and putting his own level of pressure on them.
Yeah, details on that coming up in just a moment. Also, on the main thing, Puerto Rico, it's not just palm trees and pina coladas. It may be America's most important line of defense as China and Russia move into the Caribbean. CBN's Burke has more on that coming up on the main thing. All right, make sure you subscribe to all of our CBN News podcasts. We got a bunch of them. They're all great. Check them out. You can find the links to them right there in the description of this podcast episode. We put it in there each and every one. Make sure you're following those and checking out those episodes as well. And join our growing number of believers who are praying through the news of the day. faithwire.substack.com. Get on over there and pray with fellow believers for the things happening in the world. And we'll be back with the news in 90 coming up in just 30 seconds.
My papa says the Messiah isn't real. He's just a story.
So what do you believe?
From the Salvation Poem Project comes Light of the World.
This is Jesus.
Messiah! A hand-drawn animated film that will inspire the whole family to see Jesus in a whole new light.
He's the King of all kings!
He's nothing.
He is the light of the world.
Light of the World. Opening in theaters September 5th. Rated PG.
And with that, we are going to head to the news in 90 seconds. Senator Tom Cotton is urging the IRS to strip the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, of its tax-exempt status, citing what he calls longstanding evidence of ties to terrorism. Terrorism expert Robert Spencer says this move is long overdue, arguing that CAIR was founded out of a Hamas front group and has always advanced Hamas's agenda in the U.S. The group was even listed as an unindicted co-conspirator in the 2008 Holy Land Foundation case, where leaders were convicted of sending millions to Hamas. CAIR leadership has also made controversial statements, including Executive Director Nihad Awad praising Hamas fighters after the October 7th massacre. And a Baptist church in Shelbyville, Kentucky is defending members who checked out and refused to return library books they say are sexually perverse. Titles include pro-LGBT works and one that, according to the church, described a 6-year-old performing a sex act. Elder Jerry Doris says the move wasn't a church directive, but members acted on their own, and the leadership later affirmed it as a form of civil disobedience. Those are just some of today's top headlines. You can check out more stories over at cbnnews.com. Guys, wanted to get your reaction to this story. This is interesting to me that these people are just saying, you know what, this is ridiculous that there's books like this still in existence at libraries that our kids could see. And so they're just checking them out and not bringing them back. And they're saying, nope, that's not theft. What do you guys think?
I mean, it's creative. I guess it is theft. You know, you either have to lie and say you lost the book when you didn't, right? Or you have to take it. But if you feel like you're taking it because it shouldn't be there, then that's a risk you're willing to take. And you could say, look, charge me the fines. I'll pay the fines. I don't care what it is. I mean, I can't even imagine what these library fines are. But, you know, let's see how the libraries respond to this. That'll be the interesting part. Is it like a $5,000 fine because you took, you know, Jimmy's Blue Dress or whatever the book is? I don't know. So it'll be interesting. But I do think it's a fascinating tactic.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting and one that's drawing attention for sure. Obviously, we're talking about it here on this podcast, and it reminds me of a story we did several months ago, Dan. I'm sure some people in our audience might remember, with Justin Walker. It's a pastor in Louisville, Kentucky. had the same issue. He went to a library, took his kid to find books, and it ended up finding one of these crazy, ridiculous LGBT books. And he decided, you know what, enough's enough. I'm going to start a Christian school with our own library. It's a tuition-free school. That story did really well for us. And we actually just did a follow-up interview with him. We're going to have that story and interview up this week. It's Salt and Light Christian Academy. So, that was their response, right? Is like, okay, you're going to have these books and we'll just make a Christian response to it. And we'll have our own community and our own library. And then, that's one way of doing it. And these parents just decided, we'll just take all of the books away from the library.
Yeah, we'll just take the books out and you won't see them again. And it is interesting. And Doris said that not everyone might want to take the same approach. They said Christians should follow their conscience in confronting public institutions that promote immorality, even if it means facing civil consequences. And I can see if you're feeling convicted by the Spirit to do that, because you'd rather answer to some magistrate locally rather than God, if God was really prompting you to take a stand and to do something in that particular instance. So certainly interesting, and praying that hopefully throughout all of that, God's name is made great. I mean, that's ultimately the focus that we want in this, and in all of our actions as Christians. So definitely be praying for that there. All right, we're going to go to the focus story now. And as we mentioned there at the top, Cracker Barrel is reversing course. This is quite the 180. What'd they say?
Well, they weren't able to stick it out for too long. I think they made it, a total of like 4 whole days that they before they had to reverse course. But in a statement posted yesterday evening to its social media channels, the restaurant chain wrote, "We thank our guests for sharing your voices and love for Cracker Barrel. We said we would listen, and we have. Our new logo is going away, and our old timer will remain." They went on to say, "At Cracker Barrel, it's always been and always will be about serving up delicious food, warm welcomes, and the kind of country hospitality that feels like family. As a proud American institution, our 70,000 hardworking employees look forward to welcoming you to our table soon." And that caption included a picture of, one of their iconic signs you see on the side of a road when you're going on a road trip. That seems to be like when we all go to Cracker Barrel, is when we're on the road.
Yeah.
And one of those street signs looking out onto the highway, they posted a picture of one of their old logo signs and said they're bringing those back, or not taking them down, I guess I should say.
And so what prompted the change here? What ultimately made them sort of take a complete different direction on this?
So obviously the response has been overwhelming. I think everybody, unless you live under a rock, has seen all of the social media clamor about this, and none of it has been overwhelming in a good way. So after unveiling the very simplified, kind of pared down logo and the minimalistic decor style for future restaurants, the company's stock, as I said at the top, dipped 14%. And then according to some conservative estimates, they lost about $100 million in revenue. It got close in more liberal estimates to about $200 million in revenue, so somewhere in that range. And the backlash on social media alone was intense. And then, to make matters worse for Cracker Barrel, President Trump weighed in on the ordeal yesterday morning, just hours before, interestingly, the decision to return to the original logo, which was about half a century old, by the way. So Trump wrote on his social media, Truth Social account, that Cracker Barrel should, quote, "go back to the old logo, admit a mistake based on customer response," which he said is the ultimate poll, "and manage the company better than ever before." He went on to say that they've got a chance to make $1 billion worth of free publicity if they play their cards right, and said the company should ditch the rebrand today. And by dinner time, Dan, they took the president's advice.
Yeah. And did that post from Trump sort of have any direct impact that we're aware of?
So Cracker Barrel has not said anything directly about it, but the White House is claiming a level of victory over this. The Deputy White House Chief of Staff, Taylor Budowich, he wrote on social media that he appreciated a call earlier in the evening with Cracker Barrel. He said the restaurant representatives thanked Trump for, quote, weighing in on the issue, and said that they, quote, wanted the president to know that they heard him along with customer responses, and would be restoring the old timer logo that, everybody's come to love. love with Cracker Barrel. And then Trump himself weighed in directly in a follow-up post on Truth Social. He wrote, "Congratulations, Cracker Barrel, on changing your logo back to what it was. All of your fans very much appreciate it. Good luck in the future. Make lots of money, and most importantly, make your customers happy again," which all of this, Dan, I think is interesting because before Trump was a politician, before he was a reality TV star, he was a real estate magnate and a developer. So brands and managing and marketing brands is kind of his field of expertise. So it's interesting to see him weighing in on this. And of course, the fact that he's the president, has the bully pulpit, that's going to move things for a company whenever the president is talking about you, either in a good way or a bad way.
Yeah, and there was many problems with this decision that they made in the first place to try to rebrand. Number one, it's just such an iconic brand that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. What are you doing? No one's clamoring for a change of this logo. And then if you're going to change it, it better be good. And it ended up looking like something from a very basic Photoshop shape editing tool. Like, here, pick from one of these 4 shapes. And you got a circle, a square, pentagon, and you got to put it in there in the back. And that's essentially what it looked like. It was a pretty weak effort. So to make it just boring and blah and not exciting at all, it was a kind of a slap in the face to everybody who likes a Cracker Barrel, because you could at least understand if they had some really nice design or something. You could say, all right, I get it. They threw a little ode to the past, maybe, if you had a sleeker looking barrel or something. But they did none of that. They just did a really generic bad logo and then didn't hint to any of the old history of Cracker Barrel, anything to do with crackers or barrels. And so it just made no sense. And people love Cracker Barrel for that reason. Like you said, on road trips or, sitting out on the rocking chairs out front. It's just got that vibe. It's just what it is. It's like grandma's porch, grandma's kitchen. That's what it's supposed to feel like out on the farm or something like that. And so to try to go away from that, I think, is essentially shooting yourself in the foot, because that's what people like about it.
What I thought was interesting is right after all of this happened and there was the initial backlash, Cracker Barrel released a statement, I guess 2 days ago now, saying, "We're not changing the rebrand, but we're sorry for how we handled it, and we learned over the last couple days how much people actually care about Cracker Barrel and care about the nostalgia of the brand," which to me is like, that's an indication of a problem. You don't understand your audience.
Yeah.
If you're saying that because it was through this rebrand that you realized people cared about the nostalgia of the brand. So that to me is just, fundamentally, that's marketing 101. Know your audience before you do something like this. And it seems like they didn't. The time for a simplistic, minimalistic rebrand, I think, was 2010, 2011. Right now, we're seeing kind of a resurgence of Americana and a celebration of nostalgia. This is a time I think Cracker Barrel should be leaning in to the vintagey look that everybody loves, not running away from it. So I'm glad to see them reverse course and go back to it, because that's what really this all represents, right? This is not just a silly, rebrand conversation. This is a brand about values and what people care about, and they care about that nostalgic celebration of classic Americana. That's what Cracker Barrel represents to so many people.
Yeah, and you're not going to move the needle at all these days by saying, "Oh, you know what? We're going to cave to the woke crowd." I mean, it's just not going to. And certainly not people that would like Americana and like that sort of vibe. The people, you're not going to woo them by going in the opposite direction. So it just seemed like it was a complete and total lose-lose idea. I'm not sure. Like you said, they clearly didn't seem to understand their customer base and the reasons why people enjoy and go to Cracker Barrel. So yeah, good thing that the right decision seems to have been found. It just took them a little detour to get there.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully this will probably be in marketing, textbooks in the years ahead for students to look at and say, maybe don't do this. So, by the way, that the old timer guy in there is Uncle Herschel. He's a family member of the original founders of Cracker Barrel. So he was somebody that really mattered to them and was important to them. So glad to see that he'll still be on the billboards and on the signs. And, maybe they'll do a refresh at some point. Nobody had a problem with them doing kind of a refresh, freshening things up. But just to completely eliminate all of that nostalgia that made the brand what it was, seemed like a silly move. So good decision on Cracker Barrel to reverse course there.
Yeah, good decision after a terrible decision. So at least they got there, though. But appreciate you bringing us the latest on that one on the podcast today, Trey. Puerto Rico is emerging as a strategic stronghold for the U.S. military. The details on why that's the case coming up in 30 seconds.
My papa says the Messiah isn't real. He's just a story.
So what do you believe?
From the Salvation Poem Project comes Light of the World.
I really liked that movie.
You're really going to want your fam to see this. It's Jesus' life, so clear and so fun.
I want to see it again.
See the hand-drawn animated film everyone's talking about.
He's the king of all kings.
He's nothing.
He is the light of the world.
Light of the World. Opening in theaters September 5th. Rated PG.
And that's going to lead us to the main thing now. And as we talked about at the top, Puerto Rico, obviously a lot of people just know it as sort of a vacation destination, but it's also emerging as a strategic stronghold for the U.S. military. And China's now pouring billions into the region, and Russia is flexing with weapons and war games. Officials say the island could give America a critical edge. CBN's Caitlin Burke has more on today's main thing.
Best known for its culture and beaches, Puerto Rico is also considered by many to be a strategic stronghold, with the potential to give the U.S. a critical edge as China and Russia expand their presence in the Caribbean.
Puerto Rico, being geostrategically located, provides us as part of the nation to become a buy-in to our national security, and to ensure that our national assets can be positioned here for deterrence in the region.
Over the last decade, the two superpowers have focused in on the Caribbean basin, Beijing investing billions on trade and infrastructure deals, while also establishing a spy base in Cuba. Meanwhile, Moscow has taken a more threatening approach with weapons sales, training, and joint military exercises.
As recently as last November, October, November, major Russian joint exercises were conducted in the Caribbean Sea, where, interesting enough, a nuclear submarine surfaced, and it was carrying hypersonic nuclear weapons.
Secretary of Puerto Rico's Department of Public Safety, Art Garfer, who also serves as Homeland Security Advisor, tells CBN News adversaries are getting too close for comfort.
That whole southern area of the Caribbean Sea is now controlled or influenced by not necessarily friendly nations to the United States.
Andres Martinez Fernandez, a senior policy analyst with the Heritage Foundation, points out China could now have the ability to disrupt critical trade routes there.
If there's a disruption in the ability to move goods and even military equipment and warships across them, it can have very significant consequences for the United States. And as kind of the risk of war over Taiwan increases, I think the United States is looking very seriously at what that means for Chinese presence and projection powers within our hemisphere.
Secretary Garfer believes it's time the U.S. took advantage of the geostrategic positioning of Puerto Rico.
We got two deep sea ports, one on the eastern side, one on the southern side. We do have two of the longest runways in the Caribbean basin that were used for military purposes as well. So these sites can be used once again, even if at a limited capacity, to forward project from here over the horizon as a means to deter Russian and Chinese overt aggression into the region.
Garfer sees it as simply a matter of investing in and building out those facilities, a move that would benefit both national and domestic security.
Drug trafficking organizations, violent extremist organizations, transnational criminal organizations continue to shift and look for LOCs, right? Because the southern border now in California, all the way to Texas, has been shut down. They have to see where they need to shift and move in order to keep their business going. So Puerto Rico could fall into that vector or that area of approach into the United States.
As the Heritage Foundation prepares a new report on Puerto Rico, Martinez Fernandez tells CBN News there's an opportunity to restore the territory to the national security asset it once was.
Puerto Rico can play a much bigger role, and I think there's an important opportunity with new leadership on the island and the second Trump administration to really seize on that.
With China and Russia making moves in America's backyard, experts say it's time to invest in Puerto Rico, turning its strategic location into the defense hub the U.S. needs in the Caribbean. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, San Juan.
All right, Caitlin, appreciate that. And that's going to leave us with time on the podcast today for one last thing.
We've got Proverbs 13:10, where there is strife, there is pride, but wisdom is found in those who take advice. And so, hopefully, we're talking a lot about taking advice and wisdom today. Hopefully at Cracker Barrel and others, they'll listen to Proverbs 13:10.
Well, good advice for Cracker Barrel and, most importantly, all of us.
Yeah. All of us
Good
as
biblical wisdom, truthfully.
Absolutely. All right. Good spot to leave it there with a proverb on this edition of the Quick Start Podcast. As always, make sure you're getting on over to cbnnews.com and faithfire.com for more news from a Christian perspective. Lord willing, and that creek don't rise up on us. We'll be back here tomorrow with more. God bless. We'll see you then. Enjoy the rest of your day.